Aloha. Welcome to the Sprout Report with Tom Whitmire. My special guest today is Philip NICOZISIS, author of Have Laptop, Will Travel. And let's make it a short introduction and let's just jump right into it.
Hi, my name is Jenny. I'm a sophomore, and this is for all three of you. Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
Diversity and opportunity.
Lewis? Freedom and freedom. So let's keep it that way.
Well, the New York Jets.
No, I'm going to hold you to an answer on that. What makes America the greatest country in the world? Why is
It's not
America
the greatest country in the world, Professor. That's my answer.
You're saying
Yes. And with a straight face, you're going to tell students that America is so star-spangled awesome that we're the only ones in the world who have freedom? Canada has freedom. Japan has freedom. The UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Australia, Belgium has freedom. So 207 sovereign states in the world, like 180 of them have freedom.
All right.
And yet you, just in case you accidentally wander into a voting booth one day, there's something you should know. One of them is, there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real, and defense spending, where we spend more than the next 26 countries combined, 25 of whom are allies. Now, none of this is the fault of a 20-year-old college student, but you nonetheless are without a doubt a member of the worst generation ever. So when you ask what makes us the greatest country in the world, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Sure used to be. We stood up for what was right. We fought for moral reasons. We passed laws, struck down laws for moral reasons. We waged wars on poverty, not poor people. We sacrificed. We cared about our neighbors. We put our money where our mouths were, and we never beat our chests. We built great big things, made ungodly technological advances, explored the universe, cured disease, and we cultivated the world's greatest artists and the world's greatest economy. We reached for the stars, acted like men. We aspired to intelligence. We didn't belittle it. It didn't make us feel inferior. We didn't identify ourselves by who we voted for in the last election, and we didn't scare so easy. We were able to be all these things because we were informed by great men who were prepared. First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one. America is not the greatest country in the world anymore. Enough?
All right, that's what I wanted to open with today. And then I'm going to throw it to Phil NICOZISIS, my guest today. Phil, that was 2012. It looked like they were talking about today, but that was filmed in 2012. That's Jeff Daniels starring in the HBO show Newsroom. That was the opening clip to the series. And he talks about, America not being the greatest in the world. I've noticed that it's the second worst in maternity leave and other things. So I'm just going to ask you, Phil, is America still the greatest country in the world?
Well, hello. Good afternoon. It's great to be on your show. I'm honored. You guys have had some great guests, and I'm honored to be your guest. So I feel I listened to that. Everyone on this show listened to that just now and had different reactions, and I've seen it before. And right now I feel like a mosquito in a nudist colony. I don't know where to begin. So let's break it down a little bit. I think he's right in many ways for the wrong reasons. And the thing that he's forgetting, and the thing that I realized when I traveled around the world for a year. And as you know, I lived in 12 cities in 12 months with 10 countries of 4 continents. And what I realized more than ever was that America is not a country of people per se. America is an idea. And so in Japan, for example, a guy named Jacques Dumond, we'll just pick a name, Jacques Dumond, will never, ever, ever be prime minister or president of Japan, right? And a guy named Hirohito, whatever, pick a name, Japan, will never be prime minister in France, because these places are based on, to a large extent, racial ethnicities. And America, like I said, is an idea. And so the other thing I noticed traveling around the world is just how egalitarian and the least racist place on earth happens to be the United States. So, because I can go on, you pick any country I lived in, and I can tell you the racial and ethnic rivalries and even hatreds over that, over their background and their racial makeup and their mores and their ways. So the way I'm looking at it right now with the United States is we do things the best and we do things the worst. We do things the most and we do things the least. We're just this giant, idea experiment. That's really what we are. And the thing about us, I think, unlike other countries, is we, to some extent, we have freedom. I think we all agree that freedom is under assault right now. We have big tech censorship, which, by the way, I don't think we should just break up big tech, because they're private companies and they should be able to do whatever the hell they want. And but not so fast, because they've acted as public utilities through the government. So we can talk about that. So again, I think he's right in many ways for the wrong reasons. I think it's gotten a lot worse, but we've also seen that through this thing, that the pandemic, the scandemic, the pandemic, whatever you want to call it, the people now have had a bellyful. The people have had a bellyful. They've seen now what their kids are being taught. They've seen now that because they spoke out, Tom, that they're being called by their own government domestic terrorists.
Yeah.
And so the people now are starting to, now you got this trucker strike. So interesting thing about power, I read recently, you can hold power or you can exercise power, but you can't really do both. So I think what the liberals, the far left, and I don't think we need to be political here this afternoon, because I think the people on this channel both agree that the corruption, the wrong-headedness, the size of government, the largesse of government transcends both parties. I get that, but there's going to be such a pushback, and if we do it right against the far left, we can gain 100 seats in Congress and rule for 100 years. I'm not speaking as a Republican. I'm speaking as just a common sense person who, I think that these threats coming at the state, local, and federal level, at the school district level, all these threats, I think are going to be, I'd like to think they're going to be washed away, pushed away, confronted, halted, reversed, and hopefully eliminated. And let me finish with this. I'm, because of where I live here in Palm Beach, we are, as you know, we're the mecca now for the political, the MAGA movement. Whether you like it or not, you think it's a scam, whatever. There's some good people, there's some not great people, whatever. The people that I know, I'm going to name 2 names: Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG, who's a member of Congress in Georgia, and Matt Gaetz, who's a member of Congress here in Florida. What they're saying in private meetings and fundraisers that I go to is they're saying when they get power back, it's not going to be the Paul Ryan Congress of before, who was the Speaker of the House, where he basically let, go along, get along. It's going to be preserve your documents, because we're going to come after you to legally and lawfully destroy you. And that is, that's a little bit of Alex Jones mixed in there. If you've been listening to Alex Jones, I mean, there's some really pissed off people. And I'll even take it a step farther. I'm really excited by the idea of COVID trials, like that will mirror in or parallel in many ways the Nuremberg trials post World War II with the Nazis. So these people, these unelected, gray-suited Soviet bureaucrats, gray-suit Soviet bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., and health officials in the municipalities and counties around the country, I think need to be gone after and need to be destroyed legally and lawfully for what they did. And, you know, I'd like to hear what you think about that.
All right, thank you,
Pretty
Phil.
strong rhetoric, right?
That's a wonderful introduction, a great answer to the question. I'm going to go ahead and play another video. I'm going to ask you for your comment on that. It's going to be Biden speaking. Then we're going to get into the Twitter protest.
I was having a great day until now.
We're going to get into Joe Rogan.
Great, great.
So without further ado, let me play video number 2.
Could school reopenings or closures become a potent midterm issue for Republicans to win back the suburbs?
Oh, I think it could be, but I hope in God that look, maybe I'm kidding myself, but as time goes on, the voter who is just trying to figure out, as I said, how to take care of their family, put 3 squares on the table, stay safe, be able to pay their mortgage or their rent, etc., is becoming much more informed on the motives of some of the political players and some of the
word salad
and the political parties. And I think that
it's a word salad.
We're not going to be as susceptible to believing some of the outlandish things that have been said and continue to be said. You know, every president, not necessarily in the first 12 months, but every president the first couple of years, every president, of the last presidents, at least 4 of them, have had polling numbers that are 44% favorable. So it's this idea that, but you all, not you all, but now it is, well, Biden's at, one poll showed him at 33%. The average is 44, 45%. One poll him at 49%. I mean, the idea that the American public are trying to sift their way through what's real and what's fake. And I don't think I've never seen a time when the political coverage.
If I don't show you the whole thing, you'll think it's fake.
Thank you very much for this honor. James Rosen with Newsmax. I'd like to raise a delicate subject, but with utmost respect for your life accomplishments and the high office you hold. A poll released this morning by Politico Morning Consult found 49% of registered voters disagreeing with the statement, Joe Biden is mentally fit. Not even a majority of Democrats who responded strongly affirmed that statement.
Well, I'll let you all make the judgment whether they're correct.
Well, so the question I have for you, sir, if you'd let me finish, is why do you suppose such large segments of the American electorate have come to harbor such profound concerns about your cognitive fitness? Thank you.
I have no idea.
That's his answer. Phil, would you say that's a man trying to hold power and exercise power, but he can't even bring a word to his own attention? We go from great orators around the world with great ideas, great histories, great past, to a man who can't even find the words on the tip of his tongue.
First of all, I am shocked that James Rosen didn't get kicked out or fined heavily because his nose kept going below, his mask kept going below his nose. If you've been on an airplane in the last year, you notice that it seems like their staff, the flight attendants, purpose in life is to make sure your nose, your mask is above your nose. But back to Joe Biden, I mean, that is just a good example. I mean, he is well known for just these meaningless word salads, we call them, and also Kamala Harris too. It's just these word salads that just, you know, it's like there's a dying puppy dog, you know, monkey like bouncing around in his head, just putting words together. And, you know, it goes to the heart of it. And I didn't think we were going to be political this afternoon, but I will say this, listen carefully, because I really love saying this. Elections have consequences, but stolen elections have catastrophic consequences. And this is what you get. This is exactly what you get. You know, everything that they touch, it turns to slop, turns to crap. And all he had to do was go to Delaware and sit on the beach and you know, wander around aimlessly and do nothing, and things would have been fine. But instead, we've got, you know, we have all the known problems. The one thing that, you know, that is going to hurt freedom in the country, especially the middle class, is this hangover we have, this financial hangover we have through with inflation because of the spending. Now, we had structural deficit spending, which did not, I don't think, was the reason for this round of inflation. What we had is we had this other tranche of over and above spending in the name of COVID, right? And now you've got this hangover from that. And anybody who's in the business world knows how hard it is to get supplies, how hard it is to get things, and the prices of things have just gone up. And you know, this kills me. This really kills me. I have friends who say, well, gas should be $15 an hour so we can all drive electric cars. And they don't, and I point out to them, by the way, they're not my great friends anymore. I point out to them what they have are luxury views of the rich, because what that's doing, that is the ultimate tax on the middle and lower class. When gas goes from $2 to $4, or what is like $3.80 right now.
I paid $4.50 this week,
and that hurts. I mean, people who make a lot of money like don't even look at what that costs. They don't even see it. They don't even think about it when they go to the groceries, or someone goes to the groceries for them. Do you think they care if something costs, you know, chips now went from $2 to $3.50? They don't know. They don't care. These are, this is the, and when they have those views that people should be spending $15, that's a view. These are views of these are luxury views of affluence. And, you know, then you have the champagne socialists who are there. Now, I'll also say about James Rosen with the mask.
Yeah.
Is, I don't know when that was actually a while ago, but, you know, James Rosen, he was wearing a cloth mask, which a year ago, if you would have mentioned on your social media platform that masks don't work, you would have been reprimanded or deplatformed and called a conspiracy theorist, right? Exactly. Now that's actually on the CDC website, that if it's not an N95 mask, it's no good. And Joe Rogan pointed that out, even though, and I know you want to talk about him, boy, he might have screwed up his whole career. I mean, did you hear the same 9-minute video that I heard? He had some good points. The good point, like I said, was if you would have mentioned a year ago about cloth masks, you would have been called a conspiracy theorist. If you would have said that the vaccine spreads COVID, you would have been deplatformed and called a conspiracy theorist.
Yes.
And there was a third one he mentioned. I can't remember what it is, but Then he went on about just this nonsense about, I'm not an expert. I should have more views. I should have a different viewpoint, right after somebody says, and right after, somebody comes on. And he was basically apologizing. And I know exactly what was going on there. He was protecting his money stream. He's basically selling out. And, we don't really know what that's like. I mean,
Phil, I can play that video if you want some support there.
yeah, let's, so if we want to talk about Joe Rogan, you're going to go there, go ahead, do that.
Let's go there, and then we'll come back to, we'll continue talking about Joe Rogan. But I got Rogan doing this apology, and you're exactly right. The media said he apologized for what he did. He just said that he's willing to bring on,
I think,
other examples and other points.
if there's anything that I've done that I could do better is have more experts with differing opinions right after I have the controversial ones. I would most certainly be open to doing that. And I would like to talk to some people that have differing opinions on those podcasts in the future. So my pledge to you is that I will do my best to try to balance out these more controversial viewpoints with other people's perspectives so we can maybe find a better point of view.
Yeah, that's somebody that is being forced to apologize, as you said, to maintain their stream of revenue, and so they're not canceled by cancel culture. I'll let you finish what you're saying, and I'll play a little bit more details on
No,
this.
I have nothing more to add. Let's hear more, and we can maybe talk about that.
So if we go back, I'm just going to play some articles, and I'm going to speak as they go. You can jump in at any time.
Can you hear me while it's playing?
Yeah. If we go back and look, number one, I'll just start with, I do not listen to Joe Rogan's podcast. So that's a disclaimer. But if we go back and look, what we're looking at is Neil Young demanded Spotify remove his music because of Joe Rogan's claims of health claims and natural immunity and stuff about hydrochloroquine and ivermectin and such. But then if we go back and look at, so Neil Young makes this threat, but if we look at who owns Neil Young's book, so Neil Young's book has been bought by Blackstone.
You mean his catalog?
His catalog, and Blackstone's current CEO is a former CEO of Pfizer. So we have this going between where, so Neil Young makes the complaint, he looks like a hero. It's not even his own music that he's protecting. It's corporate, multinational corporations that own the catalog. And then we're looking at things where they're directly tied to the pharmaceutical industry, that we're telling people to leave Spotify, which then Spotify loses, $2 billion in market share. Their stock goes down. Telling people to leave Spotify, go to Amazon. Well, can we claim that Amazon's any better or doesn't have things on their platform, or they're not doing atrocities in the world? So it's just this going back and taking forward and censoring, as this article says, censoring Joe Rogan is no solution.
At the same time, you've had, Joe Biden's actually on TV today talking about, health policy as if, it basically sounds like we have the United States Hospital Incorporated. We're basically nationalized healthcare at this point. We had it before. I think in terms of the dollars, I think we were 60% single payer before the pandemic. Somebody can maybe want to check on me on that with a chat in the chat area. But we basically nationalized. So this gets to, so of course Pfizer and all these companies are going to basically be connected to the government, and that's going to hurt choices, hurt freedom. These mandates are ridiculous, obviously. So I actually have an overarching solution that I've been thinking a lot about this. It's actually a project I'd love to work with somebody on. Probably you and I, Tom, are going to work on this.
Let's do it.
I've had this idea for a new constitution that's written like the old constitution, except it tries to plug all the loopholes, and then it has strong punishments like jail time. We're going to build jails in Washington, D.C. for political prisoners who violate freedom. But the main key of the new constitution is limits public sector spending to 10%. So if you have 10%, the libertarians love that number, 10%, right? Because it's what we call easy taxes. It's much easier to just pay the tax than to either cheat or to create behavior and act irrationally in the marketplace, which essentially is what a overreaching tax policy does. It creates distortions and provokes people to behave irrationally. So if we had a government that was legally, including and especially wartime, limited to 10% GDP spending, then we wouldn't have this fight over money, and then we wouldn't have these big corporations. They would be living and dying by their own merits instead of by cronyism and crony capitalism. Does any of that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
You think we can do it someday?
I don't know.
And where in the world could this place exist? You know, speaking of that, I was at Freedom Fest in, this year it was in South Dakota. It's usually in Las Vegas. Las Vegas really screwed them over from the last 2 years and canceled Freedom Fest. You can go to freedomfest.com and check it out. Have you heard of Freedom Fest, Tom?
Yes, but I have not been there.
Right. It's an incredible 4 days of workshops and keynote speakers, about 150 workshops across a range of topics. I've actually been a speaker there on about veganism. And so one of the vendors, and they have a whole vendor area and a bookstore and everything. It's like, it's free minds and free markets, you know, expose. And so one of the vendors there is building a country in the water with these like rafts.
Okay.
And you'll be able to build buildings on these rafts, and you'll be able to link them together. And you can buy condos and apartments over the rafts, and they're selling property in the middle of the ocean.
Wow.
And I forget where exactly it is, but they had all the right answers. Like, what about storms? What about this? What about that? I think it's off the coast of Central America somewhere. They'll always be able to. So anyway, I always dream about, you know, the future of freedom. I dream about, you know, where can we make a better country with a constitution
Exactly.
that they had it so right. But by golly, if they could have just limited the size of government by a number, I think 90% of these problems would go away. And the other thing I think about a lot is, and I actually talk to people here locally about it, is Florida is really, in a way, poised to be its own country someday. Could be. It's not on the table right now. It's talked about, it's whispered. Texas has always, you know, flirted with that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think, you know, the Constitution does not allow succession. It doesn't have a process for leaving. Obviously, there was a civil war before, and that didn't work out. So who knows about that? But we can move on if you want. Go ahead.
No, I think that was a wonderful answer. When you're talking about government and will we ever be able to do that? We can't even get the government to recognize a tomato as a fruit when it's actually a fruit. We're considering, you know, that a serving on pizza. That's our government with Tony's Pizzas.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's move on. Give me your final thought, then we're going to move on to the trucker protest in Canada. No,
the other thing is people say, don't ever bring this up, don't ever talk about this. But, you know, the thing that I've been hearing from people is, you know, what are the guns for? If we don't use the guns now, what are the guns for? People say, oh, you can't talk about that because, you know, then you lose all credibility and you lose the middle and you lose the independence. And, you know, I've just been thinking about that a lot. I don't even own a gun, but I'm just thinking to myself, gosh, when you think about what the country was meant to be as an idea and what the country is becoming, if we don't use the guns, what are the guns for? I just ask that question to myself all the time.
Yeah, I agree. There's no vigilante justice. There's the bad guy who is creating, you know, the trouble and the trauma in the world goes to bed with peace of mind. And like you said, the person that stands up and just makes a comment that's in opposition of it has to be scared, has to feel like somebody may, come and knock on their door at night. Why isn't that the bad people don't have any sense of, fear that something bad's going to happen? It's going to happen to them. They have no conscience. They feel nothing. I'll give you a quick story that I've probably mentioned many a times, but in Flint, Michigan, where I'm from, the American automobile industry, if you drove a foreign car in Flint, Michigan, somebody would bash in your headlights, your taillights, crack your windshield. They would do something to let you know that you don't drive a foreign car in Flint, Michigan, where we make American vehicles. So don't drive your job away. Don't work in American auto industry factory and then buy, a Japanese vehicle. So what happened? People in Flint, Michigan, and Genesee County, and in Michigan, they would buy American automobiles because there was a fear that if they didn't, something would happen. And maybe that's not a great example, but it is an example of how people think. If they actually thought that something bad would happen if I follow through with these instructions that I know are against my own conscience, or if I do something, if I inject somebody with something that I know is bad, something may happen to me, then maybe those people would stand up and do it, instead of those people being the people that say, well, I have to do it because I have to protect my job. I just bought an RV. I just bought it this, and this. My kids are this, and this. I have to protect my job. And that's what I'm seeing out there, Phil.
So much of, you got me thinking about this now, so much of our existence in this society is based on mass psychology. And Dr. Robert Malone, who we all know has risen up as one of the proponents of the second opinion, who the mRNA technology for this so-called vaccine came off of his research bench, right?
Yes.
He calls it mass formation psychosis.
Yes.
And so much, I mean, think about money. Think about paper money, which, only a government can take perfectly good paper and perfectly good ink, put it together and have the potential to make it completely useless. Okay.
Exactly.
But the idea that I can give you this paper with the ink on it, and then you can do stuff for me or give me stuff in exchange for it, and that it's actually worth what we say it is all based up here. And that fascinates me all the time. That blows my mind. The idea. So much of what we do is based on our collective thoughts. And, there's a natural tension, back to the freedom thing. This idea that we live in the community, but the community lives in us. And as freedom loving people, we know that we like to think anyway, that we're the CEO of our lives, and that we run our lives, and that we make the decisions for us. But at the same time, we've been brought up in families with parents. Parents have expectations for us. We went to Sunday school, and we've got that whole layer of programming. And we also grew up eating animals, and being told we need to eat meat, dairy products, and eggs to be healthy and strong. And so by the time we're 12 or 13, this indoctrination on so many levels and so many layers is so strong that, it's the community versus the individual. And there's this natural tension. And, I guess what's the alternative? We could be a fish in the sea, swimming around, living our lives as celebratory and purposeful as a turtle. I have to worry about all these things. I have, as you know, I have almost 800 logged dives around the world as a scuba dive master, and half of them are right here and staring at the ocean now in Florida. And it amazes me how the marine life down there has no idea. They're in their own world, and there's so much going on down there in the action of in their ecosystem in their life, and they have no idea what's going on up here. And the people who've never been 20 meters down have no idea either. And there's this the Earth is really operating under two different spinning furies of activity, the humans and the marine life. And I don't know, I guess I just digressing on that. So thanks for indulging me on
Oh,
that.
I like it exactly. I've had that thought before. So we go down in, scuba gear and look at them, then we come up and unzip the scuba gear and we're this whole different creature. Are they swimming from the bottom where we can't go up, meeting us halfway? They're looking at us, we're looking at them, then they swim back down and then they unzip out of their, I look like a shark gear, and there's some other organism that lives on the bottom of the ocean in their world.
Speaking of scuba and the two different worlds, I often wonder what they think when they breach the water and they pop out of the water and they see for like half a second, I don't know.
Lady smoking, putting on suntan lotion.
It's good imagery there. Maybe she was topless. They'd get a good show,
Yeah. All right, let's go. Let's move into the trucker protest. We're going to do the trucker protest. Then I'm going to officially introduce you and your book and let you talk about that a little bit more.
There's more? Wow. Okay. Awesome.
I have watched Canada, once respected as a haven for anti-war Americans in the 1960s, turn into one of the most repressive countries on earth. I wonder how a freedom-loving people could allow themselves to be abused by these mini Stalins without a peep. But then Canada stood up and showed the rest of the world that freedom can triumph over tyranny if the people demand it. As I say, no army can stop an idea whose time has come.
Buddy Percy thinks alive. Looks like we've got us a convoy.
The small fringe minority holding unacceptable views do not represent the views of Canadians.
We're looking for freedom. That's the only thing.
As we can see from the visuals coming from Convoy, that they are all practicing social distancing as they gear up for a photo opportunity.
Lockdown are more dangerous than the so-called COVID.
They're just here for everybody's freedom. They're just saying that we're white supremacists. They're saying that we're racist. I haven't seen any of that.
Less than a week later, as tens of thousands of trucks began entering the capital with millions of supporters behind them, the brave Canadian Prime Minister had fled the city and shuffled off to an undisclosed location. As Elon Musk tweeted, it would appear that the so-called fringe minority is actually the government. We owe a debt of gratitude to the Canadian truck drivers. Let's do all we can to help the freedom movement continue to gather steam worldwide.
You've sold us.
So I'm just going to recap the movement, and I'm going to show you this Justin Trudeau clip. So the convoy is actually like 45 miles long as it moves across the Canadian country from Vancouver to Ottawa. 1 million different citizens have come out to support the protest, whereas the media will say it's been 100 to 200 people. The videos and the aerials and the drones and everything, you're looking at close to 1 million. The Prime Minister, as known as the communist leader, Justin Trudeau, he's trying to protect freedom by locking people up. So you saw that quick clip of him trying to explain that these protests don't represent the Canadian people, but they clearly represent the views of the Canadian people. And the media has a complete blackout. They blacked it out for days until they couldn't stop mentioning it. And the other cool thing about a trucker protest is that truckers operate on a CB radio, which can't be shut down, can't be tracked. So they could shut down their cell phones, they can shut down social media, but the trucker can talk from truck to truck on their CB radios, which is kind of, preppers always kind of have a CB radio so they can, talk distances to other people. So it's really, they can't shut down the communication. So we have this 45-mile entity that just moved all the way across the country as people kept joining it.
Amazing.
And Trudeau stepping up to try to say, oh, this isn't happening, don't worry. I'm going to play you 2 clips of Trudeau being shot down by people at press conferences. And then I'm going to play you a clip that's going to follow right in. That's going to show Klaus from the World Economic Forum, saying that that Trudeau is one of his people and he's trained him, put him in place, and over 50% of Trudeau's cabinet has been trained by Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum. And then I'm going to give the closing remarks to Mr. Ron Paul again.
To globalism.
Okay.
You are not working for Canada. You are working for your globalist partners. I wonder how much they're paying you to betray Canada. What do we do with traitors in Canada, Mr. Trudeau? We used to hang them for treason. And you're doing that very same thing to us now. We know what you're doing.
When I mention our names like this Merkel, even Vladimir Putin and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. But what we are very proud of now is the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more, half of this cabinet, are for our actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
People that he has trained to be how to puppet people, how to be their masters, how to usher in this reset. He's now complimenting and saying, my people are now in place. He has them placed in Argentina. He has them placed in France. He has them placed in Australia. He has them placed in Canada. All the areas where we are seeing the uprising actually take hold, where the lack of freedom is at its utmost. Phil, do you want to comment?
I'm just disgusted. I know about the World Economic Forum. I know about that fellow. These are evil people. And I guess was it Einstein who said it's people, the only thing it takes for evil to win is for good people to do nothing, right? Yeah. So in a way, we all have to do something. Action, action, action is what Steve Bannon likes to say on the War Room. And, we have to get involved, or else, just like Plato said, we're doomed to be governed by our inferiors. And, when the election was stolen and in 2020 and the illegal regime installed this illegal premier, I don't even call him the president. He's an illegal premier. He's an illegally installed premier. I was just like, well, I have mine. I'm doing great. I have a great life. It's not a perfect life, but I do well. And I thought to myself, the country doesn't love me or anybody anymore, so screw it. But now that the butt hurt is gone a little bit, I think. And you just feel like you feel the tailwind. You feel and you see it in your localities. These moms who have had a belly full of critical race theory that they saw on the distance learning laptops, and they've had a belly full of the masks, and you just see this like uprising. And these truckers. I mean, I have something else to say about that. As you know, I'm in the real estate business. And so what I'm saying is I'm very inspired by, everyday people and what they're doing. And to further the point, what I was going to say about my business is I get to travel around the country and I visit properties and I see my tenants and I see what my grandfather reminded me of, or what I'm reminded of what my grandfather said at the dinner table. And an immigrant from Greece with a 6th grade education. He lived with us for 17 years. He said businesses, and when he came to America a long time ago, he had a Greasy Spoon restaurant in Manhattan, New York. Remember, cheeseburger, no Pepsi, Coke. That was his place. They modeled it after his place. And so he used to tell us, businesses will survive almost anything, but they will not survive neglect. So as I traveled around in the last 2 years, these businesses have been, I'll just say it, we're not on cable, I'll just say it, they've been on the balls of their ass. Okay.
Yeah.
They've had challenges like we all know about with the health, the local health Department of Health dictates, and the masks and all of the PPE and the carry out and the deliveries and the no dining room and the distancing. I mean, the people being sick, the workers getting sick, the workers not wanting to come in. My brother-in-law is a dentist. He has a practice and he's had problems, keeping staff, and they don't want to come in and they're scared because the government's been feeding them, the media has been feeding them this fear porn day after day. And if you're not careful and you're not paying attention, the next thing you know, you're brainwashed. And I know the people on this show right now and the host on the show right now are not brainwashed and have they see what the hell is going on, and we're not just going to let it happen. And but what I was going to say about my tenants and the businesses I see, I get very inspired. The way they adjust, the way they made it work.
Yeah.
I feel like humbled because I know I probably wouldn't even be able to do what they do to all of a sudden pivot to like, okay, well, we're not dining. Now we're going to have to figure out how to do carry out, and do it well and make people want to come back every other day. And across the market basket of businesses out there, it's just amazing how they have survived and even thrived. But you know what? At the Trump rally in Texas, he said something that I hope they pick up for the 2022 election. If he runs in 2024, who knows what the world would be like. But he said something that was great. It was a phrase. The phrase was, "We're moving on from COVID."
Yes.
I was just like, yes. In other words, and I would take it a step further. And when I see him next time and I get to actually have a conversation, I want to say, sir, or somebody of that, elected official level, please stand up and announce, tell everybody to take off their masks. Do it on the airplane, do it in the airport, do it in the hospital, do it everywhere, because guess what? They can't arrest everybody and they can't shut down. And what are they going to do? Shut down? Actually, I believe Biden is such a mean and bad guy that he actually, I think, would have no problem shutting down the air traffic system for the day if everybody, they just don't care. And that's the one thing I noticed when I was in Havana, Cuba 2 years ago. I was one of the last tourist groups to go because Trump shut that down. I went with a scuba group, and they took everything from the people and they crushed them and they starved them and they took their businesses, and they don't care because they love power. And that's this Marxist wave, this totalitarian wave that's been sweeping over Western democracies, and especially in the United States. They don't care if they crush you and they hurt you. They just want the power.
Exactly.
And maybe it makes me, listen to this, it makes me miss liberals like Bill Clinton.
Wow.
Listen to this, because it's true. If you're old enough to remember the 90s, Bill Clinton was a pro-business Democrat, whether you liked him or not. He wanted to promote business so he could tax the crap out of you. That was yesterday's liberal. You understand that?
Exactly.
Today, they just want to take your stuff. And actually, they say the quiet part out loud. The quiet part out loud, the party of Davos, the party of Davos says, the globalists say, you will own nothing and you will be happy. Yeah. That's actually their slogan. They say the quiet part out loud. They'll forgive your debt. They'll forgive your student debt. But, the asset bubbles, you can't afford a house. Don't worry. Pay us rent. We'll own your home. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. And that's antithesis to freedom, because when you own things, then you start to have the power against even the most large and powerful forces. It started, I guess, with I'm no historian, but didn't all that start with the Magna Carta? The Magna Carta was the contract with England that gave the people power over the king, no matter what the king said. Isn't that how all that started?
This is when we need Walter.
I know.
Well, Walter would have jumped in right there and took it over. Walter, are you here? Where is he to jump in? Phil, I'm going to jump in and change the topic to
Let's
your
do it.
book.
Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we do our introductions in the last 10 minutes here of who we got speaking today. So speaking in front of you is Philip NICOZISIS. Phil has written the book, Have Laptop, Will Travel, 12 Cities, 12 Months. That's the picture of the cover, the back, and the surprising last page. We did a second edition. Phil just put out a second edition of this book with over 3,000 changes and a new surprise ending. And the book really takes you as Phil runs his real estate business from his laptop and his cell phone. He travels the world. He's a vegan. So it's a little bit about food, health, nutrition, how to survive on the road, veganism. He's pro-freedom, liberty, power, and he gives you his opinions. He's got Phil facts in these little bars where he takes out and he kind of describes what he sees in Argentina. He talks about socialism. He talks about communism, and he really gives you a perspective. So it's a travel log. It's a travel book. It's a memoir, but it's also a look at going back, a year before the pandemic. So really, we're looking at things where, a modern day politician knew that this humanitarian philanthropist, businessman, an excellent, outstanding individual was traveling the world on a paper passport with unknown vaccine statuses. And he was going to events. He would go to an orphanage one day. The next day, he would speak on veganism to crowds of 1,000 people. So he spoke, I've seen the photos, Dr. Will, Tuttle, and Phil speaking to crowds of 1,000 people in auditoriums because they just want to absorb health and nutrition up like a sponge. And Phil runs a real estate business in West Palm Beach, and just has an excellent family man, has a beautiful wife. And Phil, why don't you give us a couple minutes about your book?
Well, thank you for that background, because it's interesting, because almost all of that is gone right now, right?
Yeah.
None of those vegan meetups are happening. I cannot traverse in and out of Thailand to go to Singapore for the weekend, to come back to break up my Thai visa, coming from Japan with a US passport. You can't do any of that right now. If you go to Japan's website or their government website, it says no visitors allowed. They're not even allowing visitors right now. And, you've had a lot of COVID talk before this show. We know now that 85% of the deaths were completely unnecessary. And this is just all based on fear porn. But as far as the book goes, I'm happy to tell you that I've had a lot of milestones with the book, and I think it's because people are inspired by, people love travel, right? And more recently, the idea of this book is pretty provoking, in the sense that we talked about you traveling around the world at will with just a valid paper passport. But I'm happy to say that publisher, I had always self-published, and with self-publishing, I sold over 10,000 copies and made many bestseller lists, including #2 on Wall Street Journal in all categories, and Amazon and USA Today, and many, many countries. But I'm happy to announce that I have a agreement with a publisher called Postal Hill. Have you ever heard of Postal Hill, Tom?
No, but please continue.
Postal Hill Publishing is basically the Simon & Schuster of the conservative movement. Postal Hill Publishing just published Miranda Devine's book, The Laptop from Hell. So we got 2 laptops in the mix here. We got
wow.
Hunter Biden's Laptop from Hell, and now we have Laptop Will Travel. They also publish James O'Keefe, Project Veritas books.
Okay, very popular.
Came out with American Muckraker. So this, like I said, this is like the Simon & Schuster of the conservative movement, and they love it. When they reviewed it, they're like, "Wow, this stands in contrast to today's lockdowns." And one of the one of the hallmarks of totalitarian and in recent history, communist regimes is restricting the movement of people. When I was in Prague, Czech Republic, there's a great museum called The History of Communism. And I spent an afternoon there. I could have spent a whole week there. It blew my mind. I can't believe that people, I walked out of there, I can't believe the way people put up with this. But then we're actually putting up with a version of it. But in Czechoslovakia, under the communists, you couldn't leave the country ever. You had to be, you know, well-connected or a diplomat of some kind, or, you know, a government official to leave the country, because that's what communists do. They keep people from moving in and out of countries. And so what the hell's happening now? And that was actually an outrageous idea for us in the West. And now it's kind of accepted as normal. And now you have to have a health credential. You know, I hope 6 months from now, we're all talking about this as something that crumbled, because from what I see, I think London abandoned it, right? And
yeah, a lot of countries are starting to abandon it.
Yes. So if you want, I think it's a good read. One thing people tell me is it has 12 chapters. Each chapter is the city that I lived in. So we have, you know, Croatia, Prague, Czech Republic, Lisbon, Portugal, 3 months in Asia, 6 months in South America, North America. You can kind of just, and it's over 300 pages, so it's a very substantial read. But you can break it up chapter by chapter depending on if there's a city you always wanted to go to, or you have been, you wanted to see if I was accurate with what I said about the city. So it's fun. It's serious. There's, you know, there's a little bit of sex, drugs, and rock and roll thrown in there as well. And so I hope if you do read it, I hope you enjoy it. And please leave a 5-star review on Amazon.
Exactly. I'm going to open it up to questions here in a minute, but I just want to make sure that we don't gloss over the fact that I'm going to express back to the audience that this book has sold over 10,000 copies. So that's unbelievable. It's available in paperback. It's available on Kindle, so you can buy it directly on Amazon for, is it $3 right now on Kindle?
It's only $3. Yeah.
$3 on Kindle. And there is an audio version as well. So Phil
in my own voice,
the entire book in his own voice. It's what is that, a 9-hour listen?
It's a 9-hour listen. It's the closest thing that a man will ever come to childbirth, is to read your own book out loud into a microphone and have it sound okay and publish it. There you go.
Wonderful. And then I want to make sure that I don't gloss over the fact that with all that said, this is actually a Wall Street Journal best-selling book. And if you look in the list, it was number 2. So it was number 2 on the Wall Street Journal. So this is a real author, a real book, a real man, a real humanitarian, philanthropist, a successful real estate entrepreneur, manages a vast portfolio, but really just an all-out encompassing, amazing human being. And you can find Phil at philnico.com. So PHILNICO.com. There's a thing in the chat. I'll put it on the screen as well. Phil.
I also, other social media, The Traveling Vegan on Instagram, and then my new one on Getter. You guys got to switch from Twitter to Getter.
Okay.
I am the Soy Boy Republican.
Okay. Wow.
Soy Boy Republican.
All right. So while you say that, why don't you touch for 1 minute on being Republican, being a member of some Republican clubs, and also being vegan and in the health movement, and how rare that is?
Well, I think it's, you know, veganism is in profound alignment. Listen, who are conservatives? Who are Republicans? They basically believe in personal responsibility. They believe in the proper role of government. I mean, we should care about people, but we shouldn't take care of them. So if you believe in personal responsibility, then you have to take care of your own health, because no one's going to take care of you but you. So from a public policy standpoint, I mean, I would love to, you know, I would love to be president someday and tell everybody we have to be vegan, so we could, or, you know, if the elected officials start to realize how much money they could save from a public policy standpoint, because we know that heart disease, if somebody could stand up on that podium and say, Heart disease is a 95% lifestyle choice. We need to switch over to a plant-based way of eating so we can lower our sick bill. You know, like I said, I think we're 60% single payer right now. We're spending from a, you know, public sector spending in healthcare trillions of dollars. So we could, you know, just on that alone, I think I would rest my case. But, you know, my brand of Republican is, well, like I said, smaller government, also non-intervention. And so we know that animal agriculture is the source of everything that's destructive, including the actually very creation of war, the very creation of slavery. These are all creatures of animal agriculture and people's desire to, or habit forming to eat meat, being born in a culture where we're taught to eat animal foods, whether we could, you know, decide for ourselves or not when we were babies. So that's, I don't know, does anything that I said sound incongruous to, you know, Republican ideals or libertarian ideas? I don't think so.
No, it should not matter, and it shouldn't be. People shouldn't be shocked at what you vote and how you eat or the decisions you make, and they can be one and the same. And more people should have, you know, good quality, you know, morals and ideas. When I was in political arena as well, and I went to an event and I spoke, and there was, you know, people from Sierra Club and all these environmental organizations, and then you just tell them, you know, oh, you know, I'm running on the Republican ticket, they immediately pull back and they're your opposition. But then you ask them a simple question like you just said, do you consume meat products? And if they say yes, that is the number one thing that is destructive to the environment. Right. They're at a thing trying to tell you, you know, oh, you should only flush your toilet once a day, instead of what is destroying the rainforest and what actually, while they're cutting down the rainforest and why they're burning it. And I'll just do a quick a shout out to Cowspiracy, is a documentary that you can watch that talks about that, and as well as Seaspiracy. I'm going to open up the whole topic, the whole discussion that we talked about. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns that our live viewers want to bring to Phil's attention or ask him about? Phil, you must have answered all the questions, but anybody can jump in at any time.
Can I ask something?
Yes, please. Audrey?
Philip, can you hear me?
I can, loud and clear. Nice to be with you.
Nice to see you. Thank you. That was so interesting. I've loved the podcast today. If you had one country to visit again, just one, what would it be? What nation or what country or what people stole your heart? And have you ever been to Israel?
I have been to Israel. I'm going to say it was 7 years ago with my local church in Boca Raton, the Greek Orthodox Church. We did like a pilgrimage, and we retraced the steps of Jesus and went to all the main sites and
Via de la Rosa.
Yeah, and the thing, yes, and the thing that you know, I was, I guess, 3 years a vegan at that point. The food in Israel just blew the vegetables, the fermented vegetables, the colors, the freshness of the food, wow. the intrinsic understanding of vegan. Actually, the hotels we stayed at, you know, a lot of them were, you know, had the meals included. So in the main dining hall of the hotel, on the right side was the animal products, and then on the left side was the vegan stuff. Like they so get it. It's just, you know, these ancient cultures, you know, were vegan, and you know, when they you know, in ancient Rome, you know, they dig up remains of people, they can tell who was the slave and who was the aristocrat just by looking at their teeth. And the slaves ate the vegetables, and the aristocrats and the rich people ate the meat. And so so that's Israel. Loved it, of course, loved the weather, loved the people, saw things firsthand, saw the Palestinian area, saw a sign that said no Jews allowed, like an official government sign. It basically said at the bottom, you know, no Jews allowed. Like, I was like, what? And it actually saw, and I've seen actually firsthand around the world, that the pillar of Arabic culture and Islamism is actually hatred for the Jews. Like that's like one of the main reasons they breathe the air, is to hate. They wake up every day to hate the Jews.
Right, it's crazy.
But as far as, and I get asked this other question, my favorite country, and I have to admit, I change it a lot. Like
you could say there's no place like home.
You know, it's kind of like asking, who do you love more, your daughter or your son? You know, but the one that I commonly will fall back to, because it was so different, but I'm a little heartbroken because they don't miss me at all, and they don't miss you, and they'll never miss you or me, is Japan. Because it was I finally found a place where everything was done perfectly. Everything was done on time, without any confrontation, without any drama. And it was just, but at the same time, they're like robots. So I remember the time when, as a vegan, this is like 4 years ago, so they didn't have all the options that maybe they have now, but I just wanted a pizza without cheese. And the guy couldn't wrap his head around to do the pizza without cheese.
Yeah.
Like, they don't do special instructions at all. And so, but clean. That's the other thing about Japan. Actually, all of Asia, these are very clean people. Not in the Muslim way, but in a very wholesome way. Like, I remember the streets, even the garage where they repair cars. I remember looking at the lifts, under the lifts, to see if there was drops of oil. And you could sit down there and like eat off the floor in the garage.
Wow.
The city streets were clean, no graffiti. They're just, if I had to sum it up, it would be respect. And of course the food was great. The vegan options were great. Everyone's really polite, and no one raises their voice. It's a non-confrontational society. Now, does that have unintended consequences? That they maybe say yes when they mean no. And here, in America, or I remember the contrast was when I went to Argentina after being in Asia, and everyone's yelling and screaming at each other. I was like, whoa, it was really something. And I remember, and I love talking about this. I remember, 3 months of bowing. I was literally like doing this and then using chopsticks. And then all of a sudden everyone's hugging and shaking hands, and the Argentinian people are kissing everybody. I was like, this is so weird. So again, it was like I was saying before, we live in the culture and the culture lives in us. And there's this natural tension between the sovereignty and the rights and the ambition of the individual and what they want to do versus what the programming of the community and the society. And I guess that's what it means to be human. Like I said, we could be turtles in the ocean swimming around, or lobsters and octopus and sharks doing our thing, and we wouldn't have these issues, right? So
do you think that in the climate just now of total draconian tyranny, and I'm one of these people that are not hypnotized, obviously, I think maybe we underestimated our divine sense, our humanity. Because it's all artificial, to me, hybrid reptilian psychopaths, they haven't understood the heart, the love that we would have for each other. And I think maybe that's what is rising now. And even if they don't stop their plan, which I don't think that they will, they're going to push this agenda forward.
They're never going to stop. Yeah.
They're never going to stop. We might have to be the remnant, the margin that try and survive this, just because of our love for humanity, and try and grow that
don't
way.
ever give up. Don't ever give up, because you are the general in the army of love. And I just got to ask you, where from Kentucky are you from?
I'm from Scotland.
I'm just kidding.
Wow.
I love your accent. It's so cute. It's adorable. It's different.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's
thank
great.
you for your question. Yeah, Japan is great. And then, oh gosh, Malaysia, because I met Kuala Lumpur. I met this vegan meetup. These vegans, and they took me in like their family, and they're actually Indians and Chinese. And in their whole chapter of vegans, there was not one Malaysian Muslim. And I think that's interesting. And you find that around the world is that in the vegan groups, they really have no Muslims. And but Malaysia was a country where I saw that a modern Muslim culture can live in a modern way and get along in the world. I saw that. I we don't have time to go into that, but if you read, what is it, chapter 6? Yeah, chapter 6 about Malaysia. I was just amazed, and it's a really beautiful. Once you get out of Kuala Lumpur, a city of 10 million people, incredible skyline. You've never seen a skyline like Kuala Lumpur. But once you get outside of it, you got these lush green mountains, and you've got ocean and islands, and the people are kind. The people are kind. So everywhere I go, people are nice. That's what I learned. Yeah.
Well, maybe that's because you're nice too. So
Thank you, Audrey. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful answer. Yeah, I really enjoyed Phil's Peru chapter. As you can see on the book behind him, he went to Machu Picchu, and he also did an ayahuasca ceremony. And I know psychedelics are getting popular, so a lot of people have really liked to experience what ayahuasca was like. Phil and his adventures in Peru. I'm gonna do a quick ending here, and then I'm gonna throw it back to you, Phil. And I want you to end, but just telling us about living a Cape life. So real quick, screen share here, and then there's Phil's press release. Okay, so I just want to point people to the fact that I did a show last week. It was an interview with Tim Ballard of Operation Underground Railroad.
Oh, wow.
And it was very controversial topics. It was human trafficking, child sex slavery, pedophilia, cover-up. So a lot of stuff that people, don't want to talk about and don't want to hear about. But I'm just going to push you to check out the video list here on Rumble. So it's rumble.com. I'll put it in the chat. It'll be in the show notes as well. But if you go to the Sprout Standing Rumble, there's the Tim Ballard. There's all the videos that we've done are all on here. Here's a full featured films, an hour and 46 minutes. That clip of Newsroom with Jeff Daniels that is taken from my film, and you'll enjoy that. And just a lot of other people, and it kind of expresses, it's the best of the best to lay out why we're having a pandemic, why we're being lied to, and how we can answer questions of our families and our loved ones. And it's also on Brighteon as well. So also put those links in there, but it's brighteon.com channels/Sprout Standing. That's kind of my little commercials to keep watching the Sprout Report. Subscribe to these channels, and then the next day after this, these will be chopped up and they'll come onto then. So Phil, the last word, I just want you to end with what is a Cape life? What's that mean to you, and why do you wish that to all that you meet?
Well, I wrote the book to inspire others to live a Cape life. I'll tell you what that stands for and what it means. Never did I ever want to come off. There's two things I wanted to make sure when I wrote this book, Tom, is I wanted to make sure my mother wasn't upset with anything that she read inside of it.
Oh my God.
That's the first thing. And the second thing is I wanted to, when I had a book idea in the beginning, I would start to write this book, and a really popular, well-known author told me, he's like, whatever you do, don't make it seem like, look at me, here, look at me, look how cool I am doing all this cool stuff. And so I was mindful of not being a show off or something, right? And so my intention for the book, and if you read the book, I hope that inspires you to live a CAPE life, a Cape life. And that stands for celebratory, adventurous, purposeful, and extraordinary.
Wow.
All right, aloha. That's going to conclude our show, the Sprout Report with Tom Whitmire. And next week, Walter is going to be doing the 3 p.m. live. I'm going to be in an exotic location known as the Greater Wasatch Mountains on a ski trip. So thank everybody for joining us live. Thank everybody for checking out the channel on Brighteon. So it's brighteon.com/channel/Sproutstanding. On Rumble as well, just search for Sproutstanding. And as always, you can go to www.sproutstanding.com. I'm Tom Whitmire. He's Phil NICOZISIS. And we'll see you next time. Aloha.